edition cap.
Alright, what is up? It is 2019. What's up, party people? It's your Geek Chic fam back again for 2019. Doing it again for y'all. AD here in the house. I want to introduce my brothers. Introduce yourselves, brothers. What's up?
Once again, want to start off 2019 with a happy new year to everybody. This is Rob Boogie, RG. You know how we get down, having fun here with my brothers. Want to shoot a special happy belated happy birthday to my other brother. We're gonna let him introduce himself. GB, go ahead, baby.
All right, GB here, formerly known as Dr. Midnight to many of my crew at Digital. You know about that, Adon. Rocking my City Edition holiday birthday present cap from the Brooklyn Nets.
I like the top of it too. You got the coochie. You got the coochie right there, right?
No, like the old Biggie Coogee right there at the top.
Baby,
homeboy, yeah.
Baby.
All right. So I'm glad to be here. Year older, not sure about wiser, but I'm working at it, and I'm ready to get the party started in 2019.
That is up. Get it started. Well, let me tell you. So let's talk about. There's a lot of things happening. I know we want to talk about a couple of things that's been popping off recently. One of the things that I've been meaning to talk about for a minute, in a variety of different forms, and I think we're going to touch it here, but I think we're going to touch it again a little bit later on. Is this whole concept of do you cut the cord? Do you get away from cable? But really what I want to talk about is this whole concept of the streaming services. So where I want to go first is the fact that what's happening recently with Netflix, right? Mm-hmm. So Netflix has recently canceled a bunch of Marvel properties, right? So they canceled Luke Cage, they canceled Daredevil, and they canceled Iron Fist. All right, and I think a lot of people were like, when they heard they canceled Iron Fist, they were like, "Yeah, cancel that!" Right? That said, I did enjoy the second Iron Fist a lot more than the first, but people were okay with that. But then they canceled Luke Cage, and people were like, what's going on there? And then they canceled Daredevil, and people were like, I see. And then did you notice that they didn't cancel Punisher or Jessica Jones?
But that was because they had to finish the seasons that they were
Exactly. So they're ultimately going to cancel all of those, right? Yeah. So now the question is the mouse, because you know how the mouse is. Mouse is going to do his thing. Did y'all see it? You ever see that episode of of South Park when Mickey comes in and wrecks shop?
Yeah. Well, just to make sure for the non-mouse literate, we are talking about the conglomerate known as Disney.
Yes. So the mouse is going to come in, wreck shop, and he's going to beat up some Jonas Brothers along the way. And but when the mouse comes in, what's going to happen to Netflix? You know what I mean? So Netflix was taking a lot of market share from whether it's from the cable companies, from some other streaming services. But now they're canceling properties. They're going to more original content. You're gonna maybe you'll start to see more bird boxes. What do you guys think when that starts to come to fruition? Is the mouse going to run things? Is Netflix going down? What do you guys think?
In my personal opinion, I don't think Disney will run things. I think they will take a good chunk of the business. But Netflix has kind of known this for over a year, because there was even rumblings that the part of the reason they got rid of Iron Fist wasn't because of the backlash they got, but was because they knew that this was coming anyway. And that's where, and it's no coincidence that we're now starting to see more original content from them that they also control the pricing on and control what the literary view of what they're doing. So, I think Disney, because it's such a conglomerate, and because also the merger with Fox, they will have a big share of stuff. But at the same time, I think Netflix will more than hold its own, to be honest with you.
Well, they've had a lot of streaming services for a while, right?
Yeah.
So it's not Oh, we're getting a little some reverb there.
Video reverb.
I'll be right back in. Can you guys see me?
Let's see if I can see you. I see you. Oh no, I see the picture. Now I see you. I see you now. You're back. You're back. Okay.
Lovely.
All right. So what were you saying?
I'm just saying that I see that I see this being a I don't even know if it's a blow for Netflix because I think we're just in a day and age where people are used to more streaming, and I don't think Disney's going to own the streaming services by no stretch of imagination because I can think of a million things that people don't watch or do watch that is not Disney controlled. So they'll take their chunk. They'll have the thing. I mean, the big thing is obviously the MCU. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know how big it would be if it wasn't for the fact that Disney's going to have MCU at their disposal. That's just my opinion.
Right. Right.
I mean, what do you think, George?
Well, first of all, since we're going to talk bird box bullshit, let's see here. So
Here
there
we
we go.
go.
Are you there?
I'm
Yeah,
here.
we're here.
We're here.
I'm here. Okay, good. Uh, I cannot sustain this crap. How can people drive a truck with that crap on,
I
right?
have no clue.
But I think it's twofold. Clearly, Marvel, and by the way, I was investing in Netflix. I started shifting to Disney when they started talking about moving these properties over. Don't forget, Disney also controls Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And Star Wars took a big hit. The Force, what was it? The Last Jedi was a very divisive movie. I loved it. Apparently, I'm in the minority on that one.
Well, I'm there with you.
Solo crashed and burned. Um, it wasn't a bad movie, but there was a secondary backlash, and as a result, Disney decided less was more. And they may be doing this with the Marvel Universe, even though this extended universe that was on Netflix, the street level Marvel heroes, was a success. I think they are very much looking at controlling content and flow. So I'm not so sure if you're going to see the same level of characters when Disney's running the show as opposed to when Netflix was running it, for better or for worse. Secondarily, I think multiple services will work. The trouble is, how do you monetize? How do you measure the type of content and flow when you cut the cord? One problem, if I can indulge, the NFL was whining about ratings loss, but the fact of the matter was, so many cord cutters are finding other ways to watch the NFL, be it Amazon, be it Chromecast, be it Twitter, even, right, to watch games. So the Nielsen ratings, whatever our old metrics were for determining viewership and listenership, has got to be modified, if not thrown out altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So streaming services are going to be competing, but how are they going to be able to judge the number of eyeballs? Cord cutting, I don't think is going away because the way we look at cable, everybody bitched about the price of cable.
Well, let me pause you there. I mean, I would think from a streaming service standpoint, I think you can judge views. You may not be able to judge independent views because you may not, unless you're Netflix and you set up different profiles because people are sharing accounts. But you can definitely judge views, right? Because you're definitely take the views and monetize them. In fact, I would imagine you're doing that easier than with traditional cable, which is still leveraging, the Nielsen family broadcast model in some regards and some of their
but I don't think
some of their metrics.
I think you're right, but I don't think that the industry is caught up with what you say. I think it makes a certain amount of sense. It makes perfect sense. If I buy Disney streaming services, it should be a pretty simple matter to see how many times I hit those Disney streaming shows or Netflix streaming or Acme or whoever the hell's running it.
You mean for Netflix to see that? Is that what you're saying?
For Netflix to see if whatever your streaming service is, heck, if Tidal decides to get into the video medium, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just saying that the way I think the industry uses to measure eyeballs is antiquated, and it hasn't caught up and stayed current with technology, at least as far as I can tell. I just look at the NFL and how now it might have been some reverse psychology on their part, but the NFL was believing they were losing viewers. I don't think the viewership dropped that much. It's just you get cord cutting left and right, and also, and cable has countered by offering different types of a la carte packages. ESPN has definitely caught the heat there
Well, I would
because
say this. I would say the NFL is an interesting beast. And I think they have a lot of complexity happening with them right now that it's hard to use them as a measuring stick. The NBA is on a been on a continued growth trajectory. I would be curious if you looked at that same metric with the NHL or the MLB, who've been pretty flat for a while now.
But
Because then I would look at those groups.
But once again though, but that kind of goes to George's point a little bit of how they measure stuff, because the MLB, for instance, a perfect example is most of their stuff is judged strictly regional versus on a national scale, because it's kind of considered, Major League Baseball is considered a regional sport until MLB playoffs. So they don't really judge the same way the NFL or the NBA judges their things. So, and because there's so many games, they're looking for a smaller tick, because in summertime there's a different dynamic with how they judge that.
That's true.
And I do kind of agree with George in the sense that we assume that these companies have these great ways and they've already thought of a way to judge viewership. I've always believed that most of the big corporations are so reactive versus progressive that we give them too much credit. I
think it depends on the company you're talking about. So I think and because in the model that you're framing here, right? There's often 3 or 4 different types of players. So there's the content maker, right? Sometimes there's a content provider in some cases that's different from the content maker. Then there's like kind of a publishing house, and then there's the vehicle, that the browser, if you will, that is sourced in, right? And different companies, sometimes they take on all 3, like and Netflix taking on original content. Sometimes they just take on one of those. I would say, the boxes, whether they are YouTube is going to get into that view as well. We're using YouTube for this, but Netflix, the Hulus, the Amazons, and then in the future, Sling.
You might as well already say YouTube, because YouTube is already charging for movies on their station. And you can link something right now for $3.99 and watch Infinity War.
Right. So the point I'm saying is the content source, the group that's actually creating content. It is quite possible that people who create content, like us, right? We're content creators. It's very possible that people who create content may not know their viewership correctly, right? I get that. The people who are publishing that content, right? Sometimes that I don't know if that's always the case. I think sometimes you get into more of a publishing model, and then very much the the content actual provider, the Netflix of the world. I think by the time you get to we're going to put this on Netflix, on Hulu, to YouTube. I mean, that's how they monetize their product. But the question is, does it get passed down all the way to the content creator? Always? Maybe not. Maybe not. And I think the content creator can get. But the point I was making on the NFL, I mean, they had the whole. They have everything hitting them, from social commentary or on Black Lives Matter to on both sides of the house, right? Bringing down viewership. They also have it's a different type of game where, increasingly, my opinion, I don't have the numbers to back it up, but I'm seeing millennials and just people in general starting to do with sports, especially like an NFL, where the games are more predictable. They're going to be on Monday, Thursday, Sunday, right? I can go to the bar and watch that. Therefore, I can cut the cord and be comfortable, right? Because the only sport maybe I watch, right, hypothetically, is NFL, just, you know, or football, right, and professional football. And because that's the case, right, you know, that might be the sport I miss if I did cut the cord. Well, if I can just go down to the local, you know, Irish pub and watch it there, right, with some buddies, right, then I've solved that problem. So I wonder how much of that, you know, kind of piggybacks on to, you know, the whole cutting the cord thing, because that's been the whole thing about cutting the cord for the longest, is that you start missing out on sports.
Yeah.
I think it wonders if it changes if you don't care about sports. And the other part of that too, or you can watch sports more communal. You don't have to watch it in your home. And then the other part to that too is there's always this, like, you know, equilibrium on sports, right? Whether do I need to watch the game? Can I watch the highlights, or do I just need the scores?
Well,
right?
let me jump in real quick. The one thing that maybe that I completely agree with is the highlight part. I mean, because we're a microwave society and we need things quickly, that could be an issue. But I don't know if it completely goes into the whole let's watch things at the bar, because we assume that coming from a metropolitan area. But there's a lot of people around this country that live in rural areas. They can go to the bar. They have to really watch the sport. And particularly those people are football fans. I don't really think that everybody knows what's going on right now.
You don't think there's a D-Dubs? They go to the Buffalo Wild Wings real quick. Get there. I mean, listen, I spent time in Arkansas, and Northwest Arkansas, and you know, they love themselves some Buffalo Wild Wings. And you go up in there, a little Applebee's real quick, do some trivia earlier, right? Get your trivia pursuit on.
I also see the same thing where they prefer to stay in their house. They might have a family where they like family members, but everybody don't want to go to the Buffalo Wild Wings either.
Yeah. But okay, so we kind of went on that little tangent. But the point being is, I mean, are these services going to take over? And I think that's kind of the thing.
I think when you look at Cuba and how it's evolved, and forgive but it started with cable, and it was basic cable, and they stuck a bunch of channels in. Then you had 3 or 4 major packages, you could throw in HBO, Cinemax. Then
WHT.
Huh?
WHT.
What's WHT?
That's back in the day. That's back in the. Never mind. Go ahead.
Yeah. But people got tired of the possibility cable prices, right? Competitive. Then when I was in Midland, getting the cable apartment, I got the basic cable. I'm like, and there was no ESPN. And then so there was a service so they had these different packages, and what I would consider my essentials: ESPN, CNN, MSNBC, the FX. They weren't all in the same package. That's what they figured out. They could tell basically without ESPN for example. And ESPN felt confused because they cut a lot of talent. That was a direct result of sports betting. And cable coupling ESPN wanted their fundamental. Because ESPN used to start more than anyone else came to. And they're service. So what we're seeing now is the evolution of how we get exactly what you want, making it as narrow as possible, and cutting out all the things you don't want. If you're a hardcore sports fan, I mean, my girl using Chromecast. Everybody's cell phone, mobile device to watch TV and home. So it's expanding, and this is my theory. The stratification is going to come between
so
people.
So George, let me jump in a little bit because your audio is coming a little choppy, but I'm just going to try to see if I can paraphrase. So so part of what you were talking about is the fact that you have to get a certain package, right? And so if you're cutting the cord, what it becomes important to you is that whether or not you can get all those that content in that package, and right. And so there are a couple of ways you can do it. You can do it from internet services. There's kind of the Kodi, downloadable all the way down to BitTorrent way of kind of cutting the cord. Then there is more of the service perspective where, or really somewhere in the middle, where you aggregate a bunch of services, whether it's the Hulus, the Netflix. Maybe you go to a Sling TV or a Pluto that can bring you small packages of content that you want to do, and you try to do that. And then on the far end, you use the cable company, and then you try to negotiate with them, right? And then in the middle of that, so you're
There's also going to be about text because some of this, if you're not really do you use Zoom, use Fire Stick, you want to put 65, put all stuff don't run your home through.
Yeah, you're coming. You sound like Charlie Brown right now. Yeah, I think. Yeah, so I heard Fire Stick though. Yeah. So to jump off, come back in. We'll catch up on you. But I think I get the gist, right? So it's the whole list, and the question becomes, right? The thing about cutting cord on the far end, where it's more of a software play, it's more digital, right? Those take a certain level of sophistication to kind of get to. Then it's that kind of middle play where it says, okay, we're going to go to the Sling, the Plutos, the other, the what's that, Futo, those other services that kind of are aggregators. And then you can go to those specific services like the Hulus, the Netflix that have original content, but they might have either live TV or expired, syndicated TV, and that they'll repackage it and present again. When you get into that middle box, that's more accessible to the regular consumer. And the question is, when you start adding up everything that people used to watch on one platform, and now you have to move it to another platform, will it succeed? And if you introduce a new platform, will people even go there? A good example, I know, Rod, you checked them out, but I still haven't got on there, is the DC Universe, right? They lost money on Titans. I mean, anybody who's been a DC fan wanted to watch Titans, but then people are like, I don't know if I want to pay that, right?
Well, once again, it's a person who's financially able to absorb that easily. It makes no brainer for me.
But you have
to question: Do people look at things the way somebody in my financial situation does? For me, I think it was like $80 for the year. That's a drop in the bucket. But to be financially sympathetic, $80 means something.
Yeah,
and they do that. And there's also to the fact that we talk going back to this thing of cutting the cord. Is it really financially and fiscally advantageous for you to cut the cord? Because even if you only like 15 things, most apps when you're streaming cost $9.99. 15 things is $150.
Well, that's what I'm saying is in the middle. If you are cutting, if you go all the way where you are downloading the using some type of Kodi app or using some type of BitTorrent app, or something analogous to that to get to your content, then I think from there it's affordable. It makes perfect sense. right? Because you're actually bypassing a lot of the services, right? When you go with these standard services, it depends, right? It depends on what you watch. So when you start to bump in TV and standard TV, local TV. Do you get that? No. Do you get national content? Perhaps. Do you get your news, 24-hour news channels? And then more importantly, do you get ESPN and your local sports or specific sports teams? So when you start getting those like NBA League Pass or NFL League Pass, what happens in those situations? And then those are the ones that start to add up. But if you don't need that, if you don't need the league passes or your local sports, and you're fine with getting your 24-hour news off of the internet, and there's only a couple of channels that you want, right? Then it becomes very easy to cut the cord. I mean, you could just go to Sling TV. One of the hardest for the average person, right? Because the hardest thing is just getting an internet package at that point. That because they always bundle it into the internet package, and the cable and the telephone and all that other stuff, whether it's Fios or your local cable provider. But once so you're still paying that, but still, buying Sling or some of these other these newer services that are coming out is oftentimes still more affordable. Like Fubo TV is probably going to be more affordable.
A basic package for Fios, even with like premium check, $179.
Yeah. So, like for example, Fubo right here, I'm looking at it now, is $45 a month. Sling is $20 a month, and Sling has multiple packages. I think from starting at $9 to like $40, and depending on what you want, right? And then you get Hulu, has some live TV, that's about $8 a month, and then YouTube TV, that's $40 a month. So,
so 40 is 40. You got not for Hulu. That's 50, 20. That's 7, and then you got like. You haven't added the HBO app or anything like that yet, which is another $9.99. Stars, Showtime, ESPN, any of those.
Yeah, HBO Now, right, is $15 a month, which is different than is the $9. So you're paying $5 more just to enable the service outside of cable, right? But it really depends on what your watching preferences. And so I think the moral of the story is that people are going to cut the cord more. People are going to watch things on their own time. There's certain things people want to watch live, and I think what I suspect will happen is that just like Amazon has kind of moved into the forefront of the retail market, and then you have some other, a lower tier and then a third tier below that. I think you're going to see Hulu and YouTube move to the front of the content market because they can provide live TV, right? But then they can also provide, the syndicated content that people like. I tend to watch, if I'm watching TV, I'm watching a lot of syndicated content on my own time, even or on-demand content, right? Versus, I don't necessarily care to watch things live. Even sports sometimes, I almost want to watch it with a delay, just so I don't have to watch the commercials. So.
The question of this is the question. As a person of a certain generation, a younger generation, and technology is savvy, do you think represent the majority of?
I don't listen. When I say YouTube and Hulu is going to be it doesn't mean AD's doing YouTube and Hulu. As the thing that's going to go forward. My assumption is when I look at the average consumer that's going to try to cut the cord, Hulu and YouTube are easy. Right? They're popular services. I can people know them. You can get them on your PlayStation. You get them on your Xbox. You can get them on your smart TV. Right? You don't have to download anything right to your computer and then plug it into some other box. You don't have to go buy no box off the internet, right? I think a distant third that might come in there and sneak into the back way might be Sling. I can see them doing that because of they actually offer a la carte services. Mm-hmm. But because of the live TV option that Hulu and YouTube provide, I think there might be some others that do it too. But those are the ones I know that actually do it. I see them taking the cake, and I see people just going with that. And if they can figure out, if somehow one of them figures out the sports angle, right, then you're fine. But all that said, right, if the real issue is if content keeps getting pulled out of that, right? So if somehow Disney pulls out ESPN from Hulu or YouTube, right? If and ABC for somehow, right? Or Microsoft and NBC and starts pulling out some other NBC content. I don't know what they could pull out, but if they did, right? FX started to pull out all their content, and Comedy Central pulled out all their products, or Fox pulled out, better yet, Fox pulled out all their products. So they pulled out Fox News, FX, Fox, FFX, right? And all of their properties, right? Those types of things. I think that can be the disruptor, and that would be a problem for people. And we've heard rumors of that coming, and I just don't know if it'll come yet.
Well, I never put those suggestions the way I want. I have a DirecTV package or whatever like that. But what I do, and you've been in my crib multiple times, I also have like a Roku and they have all these streaming apps. But I don't have to pay for it because I just use my regular service, and I have everything. And so I still watch TV the way I want it when I want it, but I don't have to keep constantly paying $10 for every app. Mm-hmm. Except the only thing I pay for is Netflix and Amazon Prime.
Right.
Which one time. And I find it to be much easier than to buy individual and have my credit card getting dinged 15 times for 15 days back.
Yeah, I mean, it could be Roku, it could be the Fire Stick, it could be Chromecast, it could be all of those. I mean, I think they all fall in that same bucket in terms of the content. I mean, the challenge with a lot of those still is that you still with all of those things. They have some places where you can get some free content, but oftentimes you're still subscribing to something. So even to watch TV on the Roku or the Fire Stick or the Chrome, you're subscribing to Sling. You can do Pluto TV, but it doesn't. There's a couple of free services out there, but they don't really provide a lot. So so ultimately you're going to still subscribe to something to get that TV content. It's just to pick up, you just got to pick on the one of choice. And what's going to happen is very much like the phone services and just very much like retail, right? Online retail, people are going to go with the one that becomes more popular because to some degree people, I don't want to say people are sheep, but we all kind of sheep. We kind of like
99% of people are sheep.
And human nature, right? I mean, I think you appreciate this, Ra. Human nature, I think there is this thing where we kind of like standards, right? Mm-hmm. So we kind of fall into a de facto standard. Oh, this is where we go shopping, Let's all do that, right? So I think that's what's going to happen. That's speaking of de facto standards, though. Some interesting stuff has been happening with Amazon, right?
Right. Well, I wanted to kind of bring up the fact that with Amazon, there's a couple of things that's happening, and for us who are in the metropolitan area, one, we know Amazon is moving to Long Island City. So my question is, what do you think that Amazon really is going to do for the economy, anywhere they move? But more importantly, on the side note, what's a little bit more gossiping, is what do you think the divorce is going to happen with Jeff Bezos?
He said more importantly. He said that's the more important piece.
Well, think about it. The reason I say more importantly, we use Amazon is used for everything. You're literally talking about a person who's going to have unbelievable amount of stock, and it's going to probably be the richest woman in the world by the time this divorce is over. She'll be worth about $70 billion.
I mean, part of me. What goes?
Come back as a blow on my neck. I'm gonna win the Powerball.
I can't quite understand yours, so paraphrase.
I don't know. I'm just guessing what he's saying. Listen, I'm going to say, I don't know. My thought is either it's going to be insane and catastrophic, or nothing. Like, what's going to be one of those two, right? and like, it's not going to be in the middle. And I'm leaning like 70% of me is leaning to nothing. Like, nothing's going to happen, right? Like, this dude is going to, basically all that's going to happen, he's going to go from being the richest dude to the fourth richest dude.
Yeah, fourth.
So, I mean, and then shoot right back up to be the richest dude.
You read the chat comment. I don't think there's much change. There's just you don't smart. She ain't gonna keep it going. I just can't believe it.
We assume it won't be much change.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So, Rob, what are you thinking? What could change? What could be different?
Well, number one is the fact that you now have a person who can now divorce. She's getting 50-50. She's in a communal state. She started from scratch with it. You now have a voice that can no hits. It ain't for anything. She's not going to be complete on the board, but how much stock is she going to get? She's going to be literally. You just said she's going to be the fourth richest person in the world. So will she.
Yeah.
She's going to get $30 billion. You call for chips when you got $70 billion in your back pocket.
Okay, so let's play it out though. Okay, so what is that? What could that mean? Like, what would she do?
Just some things I would say, but we're in the Me Too era, so I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay. I mean, we'll see. Well, I mean, one of the things though, outside of that, is that they did move to Long Island City.
Yeah.
We did give them a lot of money. Was it the right move? When I say we, I mean, I guess I say we like I still live in New York. And like I had some control over even if I did. But like, like New York State, New York City, gave them a ton of tax breaks and incentives to move in and kind of bought the contract, right? As they say. Was that the right move?
I don't think it was necessary. I mean, you want to be close to media center. I mean, think about it. When it's was Amazon really going to roll out? When it's going Austin, Texas. They were going to probably put a really strong speech or turn down Virginia. In any case, I think there's a chance that New York negotiate against us. And the other thing that New York is there.
But the argument, George, is that they didn't have to move, right? So they could have been like, all right, well, we'll go to Kansas City. We go to Chicago or whatever. I forget what other places they're running, but you know what I mean? But they they could have gone somewhere else, I guess is the argument, right? If you don't shell out something, then they can go somewhere else.
How many jobs are they bring to New York City? And how many jobs are they bring people with considered middle class? Will they enhance technology in New York? Sure. Will they be able to hire engineers like myself, maybe? Yeah. But you got 18 million positively impacted by Amazon. They take another step to become back to system.
Well, I'm gonna say
San Francisco has become a city where if you're a fireman, if you're middle class, you're considered they have completely priced out diversity in the Bay Area, not just racially, but culturally, economically. This could be another step in direction based on precedent in Seattle, San Francisco Bay Area. I'm gonna withhold judgment. I'm not sure if it's a great long-term picture. Just me.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say this real quick. The thing that that wasn't a great move for New York. And another person no longer lives in New York City, but it's still in the New York metropolitan area. I don't know with all the tax breaks in the current environment if it was a good move because to bring jobs look like there's not enough jobs in New York. I mean, we can always use more jobs. There's always jobs that somebody can do. But it's not like New York City is struggling for jobs.
Exactly.
If this would went to stay Kansas City, which I don't know their economy, but just staying
or Detroit, or Flint, you know,
anywhere like that, then it would have been worth all the tax break. But to do it in New York City
or Newark, they should have just. I mean, if they went to Newark, it would have been better. I think.
Yeah. Even if you went to like they're talking about going to New Jersey.
Because Newark is literally like is it the biggest? I mean, Jersey City is, or it's the biggest or the second biggest city in New Jersey.
Jersey City now is probably
and you have ports right in Newark, and you have a major international airport, right, and the traffic is designed to actually get through it. Like, I mean, you can't get through Manhattan to the Queens that easily, you know, certain days. You can be stuck for hours. So, but I mean, you know, they want to be in the biggest city in the world. I get it. You know, and that's kind of the thought pattern. But they went to the two cities that didn't need them, D.C. and New York.
Exactly. They were talking about moving to Northern Virginia, and they moved to Long Island City, New York. Both two places that are the epitome of the bumpy area.
Yep. And then only half of the jobs are going to be STEM jobs, apparently.
Exactly.
So they said about they're expecting 25,000 jobs in each of the satellite locations, and about half of them will be STEM. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, first of all, the reason they moved to Long Island City was to entice their people to be able to move there and start it up anyway.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Rock. I mean, we talked about streaming. We talked about Amazon. You know, if you think about history, whether it's been Microsoft was the dominant player, and then now it's the old crotchety software product now, and then before that it was IBM and maybe Kodak and whatever. Mm-hmm. I guess the point and then obviously George, you and I, we know digital or DEC. I guess the question would be Amazon, right? Mm-hmm. And then I guess to some degree YouTube and Google, right? I mean, are they gonna last? Are they gonna continue to be the top dog, given some of the recent disruptions? And all empires fall, but are they gonna be short term or the long term when these empires fall?
I mean, we've seen over everything rises, everything comes back down to earth, and then their demise is always over exaggerated. I mean, IBM supposed to be out of business, and they're still here. will have a point where you're at the top, and I'm just going by our own history. You have a point where you're at the top, you're running things, it looks like you're a conglomerate that can't ever lose, and then something new, something creative, something just with the best timing will eventually overtake you. But they will maintain some type of status quo. I mean, even as we talk about Microsoft. Microsoft now, but there's an older company when it used to be us, the innovative company. But something's still going right because the wealth of their main guys ain't going down no time soon. I just saw Barbara and Gates' wealth going up every year.
Yeah,
so,
you know.
More good.
Yeah, but I guess the question becomes though. I mean, how long? What's Amazon's run? Is it? I mean, are they at the peak of their run, or they got? Can they?
Well,
they, in NBA player years, are they 22, 26, 29, 33?
29.
Okay.
29. But your prime goes from 27 to 32.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I mean, I'm not saying in 3 years we call them 29, but we're kind of using the gauge. They're 28 to 29. They're in the midst of their prime. Everything's going well. Right now, they can, nothing they do doesn't work. But me and you are old enough and remember, in 1998, if you would have told us, by 2010 that Apple would have somehow been thought of as the innovative company over Microsoft, we'd have both laughed. But it was, until Steve Jobs' death.
Right.
I mean, now they've fallen back too, but that's just the point. Like in that 12-year period, our whole thing's changed. I mean, we went from having CD Walkmans to using iPods, and so things can change quickly.
But I think the word you're looking for is disruption. Mm-hmm. Now, personally, I actually was looking for Apple to take out Microsoft because, and I've had a lot of fights over this. I believe that form matters as much as function. Mm-hmm. And Apple always had form, but they didn't know how to market form. Your PC shouldn't be an ugly piece of plastic. Any appliances you use shouldn't be that. And people looked at Apple as a misplaced hardware company, not realizing there's power in efficient, beautiful, functional hardware. But in general, the common thread that we're talking about, Microsoft got disrupted by Netscape and then ultimately by the internet. And Microsoft seemed to have an unbeatable combination. They had the OS and they had all the killer software. Mm. And somebody realized, well, you don't need OSs when you got the web. Amazon disrupted.
Well, let me pause you on that one. So I agree, but I think you're venturing into the that territory of innovate. I was always been trying to find the word for it. The innovation, like that's pure innovation, to the ones that's kind of practical innovation. Like but by the time that disruption, that Netscape that's actually impacted Microsoft was probably like another 7-10 years out, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like
I think the process of disruption, where people started these applications, cloud, which ultimately became the cloud, right? Application, software service, platform.
That's what I'm getting at, right? So if you think about software, even you think about software as a service, we had been talking about software as a service in the early 2000s. We had been talking about having dumb terminals in the 60s. We talked about that again in the 80s, and then they talked about it again in the late 90s, and they were sure like early 2000s again this thing is going to hit. But until they actually had a practical application for it, but I'm sorry, but I think I'm digressing. What your main point was on the form, right? You're saying form.
The top dog right? Whatever it happens to be, and I think you're going to see more and more disruption. The one thing that will take out Amazon or Google will be something that fundamentally disrupts their business model. I think Amazon has an advantage that they diversified. Yes, they sell books. Hell, they take a loss on books. Why? Because they dominate the application space. If you want hosting services, right? They clean up in hosting Meanwhile, they sell books, they sell, trinkets, they sell appliances. Apple has Amazon has diversified to the point, and now we have streaming services, right? So they're into the media. They'll be harder to take out and same thing with Google, because their tentacles are everywhere.
The diversification. It's that diversification.
Take over the world, keep by Amazon, and to just chip.
Right. And then sometimes people would say, right, that diversification can also be your worst enemy. So it's also an interesting thing, because then you're not necessarily focused, and no one might not know what you stand for, or your audience will not know what you stand for.
Is that timing and circumstances play as much a role as anything else, because when you're particularly talking about like what we're talking about with, say, it going back to Apple, I do agree with George saying they always had designs, they always had certain things that were innovative, but it also helped that Microsoft was also at the time being investigated by the U.S. State Treasury Department for being a monopoly, and that they also had to loan them money, and that they had, it was so many things that worked into it. And going back to the initial question of what's the age of YouTube and Amazon and all those things being in the front, I actually believe YouTube is going to be the next Amazon, because I think right now Amazon is at the top. I think YouTube is up next, so to speak, and then we'll go from there. But so many things can happen. I mean, we joked about it a little bit with this divorce, and I don't think that's going to play any role into their downfall. But what else could happen? I mean, it takes one or two things to take you from off the top of your perch. Nothing can take them off from being the conglomerate that they are, but something can easily sway them from being the number one. And that's just something I think we just don't know. That's the beauty of living life, is that things we can't imagine will happen. Period.
Love it. Let's leave it there. Let's rock with that one as we close this out.
Definitely good.
So listen, I think we had a good spirited conversation this time, man. It was real good. So we talked about a lot of stuff, man. I'll try to leave us with something profound, but I can't think of anything right now. So I'll just say that I'll just say, listen, I'm just so happy to be in 2019 and seeing where life is going and technology is going and all the cool stuff that I could ever imagine was going. But I'm still upset we don't have hoverboards yet. So that's a problem. So maybe we'll get that this year. We'll see.
I'll leave with you one thing. Not only am I happy for 2019, I look at this as a unbelievable year that's going to happen with both Geek Chic. With my brothers already on the phone, we've already had 2 birthdays from the Geek Chic crew. So, another year, another long living, and another thing of wisdom that comes with us. And more importantly, just great things. And we thank you guys for tuning in. And more importantly, we look forward to talking more and having the spirit of conversation. And you can join in eventually and leave us with comments and what you guys think. And we look forward to continue doing this as we go forward through the year.
There you go. George, what you got to say, baby?
As trying as it sounds, I'm happy to be alive. Can I be a little sentimental for a second? I have a good friend from digital named Kathy Finucane. I don't know if you knew the Calfmeister back at DEC. We shared the same birthday. She finally lost her struggle with ovarian cancer the day after Thanksgiving. And, we had a chance to talk, not quite about 8-9 months ago. And it just brought home the value of your life. I could talk about all the things I want to do. I have some really great ideas and things I want to do, especially with Geek Chic. But more than anything else, I can truly tell you, I miss my friend, but I'm very glad to be here. And that's your base. That's your foundation. Amazing things can happen in life when you wake up in the morning. Just get up, show up, do what you can. And I know we're all going to do that. So I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to share it with my brothers. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the flesh in a week.
All right, brother. Thanks for dropping the mic, brother. I appreciate it. You know, and rest in peace to Kathy. All right. All right. Well, that was Geek Chic for y'all. You know, thanks for joining us for 2019. We're gonna keep going strong 2019. If y'all, you know, got introduced to the 2017 and 2018, we're back again. Check us out next time. And for all my brothers, peace.